point we start making distinctions between more valuable and less valuable lives. And that's a mistake. That's a mistake, which is why the exception, the approach to self-defense that makes exceptions is also an approach that decides on lives that are more valuable and lives that are less valuable. I think we cannot start there.
Right.
I think we have to start with imagining the radical equality of all lives and then ask the question, violence, no violence. What does violence do to our imagining, our commitment to the radical equality of all lives?
Right.
In the withdrawal of US forces from Afghanistan, that certain lives were protected. They could get on planes, and other lives were abandoned. And the US knew very well that those who had supported them, offered translation services, provided social services, that those people would be subject to imprisonment or death, and they abandoned them to imprisonment and death. So the very nationalism that got us into that particular occupation is also the nationalism that we asserted again in the withdrawal, making a policy decision about lives that were worth saving and lives not worth saving. Iran, I think here again, we would have to go back to the idea of fantasy. What is Iran in the US imagination, and how is that linked to the US-Israeli alliance? And of course, you say Iran and people say, oh, destruction. They will destroy the state of Israel. They are building destructive weapons. The word destruction is so deeply linked in this political, social fantasy of Iran that the actual lives of the people, their institutions, their livelihoods, their economic capacities to live and to flourish are not considered at all. What the Israeli government does in the name of self-defense obviously has played a role in my thinking about the limits of self-defense as an argument. The Israeli government can attack and does attack always in the name of self-defense. It bombards Gaza, it kills children in Gaza in the name of self-defense. Their boats collapse or they die in the water. It's not really the death of living creatures. It's just punishment for a criminal. It's just punishment for someone who is not regarded as truly human. And in that sense, there is no loss, there's no grief.
Is what you're criticizing, at least partly, inherent in the liberal understanding or even writing history? Somewhere in her book, Essays on Non-Fascist Life, Natasha Lennart puts it this way, I'm quoting her, it's a great liberal tradition to stand on the wrong side of history until the history is comfortably in the past, end of quote. Can we say that some lives are grievable, some are ungrievable, and some are grievable only later when things are safe? I can be reminded of war in Yemen in future, Palestine, Ni una menos, no, not one less, or Sandra Bland or other Black women who had been unfairly killed, and they can be probably grievable sometimes in future.
In Palestine, we could say those who are bombed or killed or tortured in prison are considered ungrievable from the perspective of the Israeli military, but their families and their friends are grieving them, and we have to actually have a screen that splits in many directions to see how a life that is so grievable in one context can be so utterly ungrievable in another. And that's part of the rage, right? That's part of the intifada. It's like, you do not consider us grievable. You consider us dispensable.